The throne within. This is the moment the man who has faced his shadow now reclaims the throne within. Not the throne of dominance, but of inner authority, of stillness that commands, of peace that governs. He stops reacting. He begins ruling. Chain 1. The awakening of rule. You are either ruled by the world, or you rise and rule yourself. They taught you to obey, to stay small, to be polite when you're angry, to be nice when you're disrespected, to smile when you're breaking. And so, you became manageable, tamed, acceptable. But the throne within you never vanished. It only waited for the moment you'd stop pleasing and start ruling. There comes a moment in every man's life when he hears the silence between two heartbeats and knows that the pain he's carrying is no longer caused by others, but by himself. Knows that the chaos he blames on the world is often the result of a kingdom left ungoverned. Knows that every distraction, addiction, avoidance was a quiet abdication of power. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." The truth? You've been avoiding your own throne, because that throne demands more than comfort. It demands sovereignty, and that takes everything. The real battlefield. Forget the world for a second. The real war is inside. You were trained to conquer externally. Money, status, women, recognition. But no one taught you how to conquer internally. No one taught you how to sit in silence and not run, how to hold anger and not erupt, how to feel desire and not obey it like a slave. The real throne is not made of gold. It's built from restraint, from clarity, from presence. But most men are too busy reacting, too busy chasing, to ever notice the throne was within all along. The myth of the king. Ancient kings weren't just rulers. They were symbols of order within chaos. In myth, the king didn't just wear the crown. He earned it by descending into the underworld, by facing his demons, by conquering his shadows. Only then did he return worthy of the throne. You must do the same. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs men who have met their inner silence and did not flinch. Men who have sat with their shadow and shook its hand. Men who walk into a room and don't try to dominate it, because they already rule themselves. What does it mean to rule? Not to control others, not to bark orders or win arguments. To rule is to be unshaken in storms, to be precise in speech, to act with principle, not impulse. It's to choose what is right, even when it's unpopular. To sacrifice comfort in service of meaning. To protect your peace like a lion guards his den. You don't chase approval, you radiate clarity. Because your throne doesn't wobble at rejection. It does not shake at silence. It does not beg for attention. It commands through stillness. Why most men never sit on it? Because the throne is lonely. There is no applause, no crowd, no validation. Only you and the weight of your choices. It's easier to scroll, to sleep with someone new, to buy things you don't need, to drink, to distract, to delay. But every time you do, you walk further from your crown. You become a subject in your own kingdom, ruled by urges you don't understand. And deep down, you feel it, the quiet ache of wasted power, the burn of a crown left unworn. The invitation. This chain is not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you were before the world tamed you, before they told you to sit still, to stay quiet, to avoid confrontation, to be acceptable. You are not here to be liked. You are here to stand. And that standing begins within. Your first act of rulership? To stop blaming and start choosing. To face the mirror, not as a critic, but as a king. Because here's the truth. You were never meant to be a follower of trends, a slave to emotion, a pawn of pleasure. You were meant to sit in stillness and govern. Govern your energy, your mind, your purpose. This is the throne within, and it's time you remembered it was yours all along. Closing line. The world will try to crown you with distractions, but your real crown is forged in silence. In the next chain, we descend into the test of command, where your strength will be tried not by your enemies, but by your cravings. Stay with us. This is only the beginning. Let's step into the second fire. Chain 2, the test of command. He who cannot command himself will forever serve what whispers to him. Every man wants to feel in control until the craving hits, and then he becomes a beggar, not for money, not for love, but for the next hit of relief. It's not power if a notification can shake you. It's not strength if silence terrifies you. And it's not self-rule if your inner world bends to every external itch. The throne within cannot be claimed until you pass the test of command. The quiet enemy. There is an empire inside you, but it's under siege, not by enemies you can see, but by whispers. A whisper that says, "Check your phone again." Say something back to her. "You've worked hard. Just one scroll. You deserve it." You know these voices. They never shout. They don't fight. They seduce. And every time you obey them, you give away a piece of your sovereignty. Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The unseen puppeteer. You think you choose, you think you act, but most men just react to feelings they never question, to urges they never examine, to patterns they never trace. This is not power. It is performance. You become the puppet. The string is craving, and the puppeteer is the shadow you refuse to meet. The myth of freedom. They told you freedom is doing whatever you want, but when you follow every impulse, are you free? Or are you just easily led? When lust controls your tongue, when hunger controls your time, when fear controls your truth, you may be moving, but you are not choosing, you are not leading, you are following your lower self. And a man led by his lower self cannot sit on the throne. The ritual of restraint. To rule is not to suppress, it is to contain. To feel the urge and not move. To feel the rage and not react. To feel the desire and not degrade it with haste. This is not repression, it is ritual. Because the king does not kill the wild beast, he tames it and rides it with discipline. That is power. That is the sacred fire Jung spoke of, not control through force, but command through integration. What Carl Jung understood. The reason most men fail the test of command is simple. They are afraid to know themselves, afraid to look into the dark corners where lust lives, where envy breeds, where resentment simmers. But Jung knew. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And so, if you seek the throne, you must meet what you fear to see. Not to judge it, not to fix it, but to name it. Because a king names his territory, and what is unnamed will always rule you from the dark. The addiction to small reliefs. Let's be honest, you don't want the dopamine. You want escape from the weight, from the silence, from the sense that something is missing, but you can't say what. So you reach, scroll, swipe, buy, message, eat. And it works for about 6 minutes. Then the ache returns, deeper, quieter, hungrier, and you go again. This is not failure. This is a loop. And the throne cannot be entered until the loop is broken. The pain of reclaiming power. No one tells you that reclaiming command hurts, because the moment you stop obeying the whispers, You hear them louder. The cravings increase. The silence deepens. The ache intensifies. Why? Because you're finally facing what you used to flee. But here's the truth. Power is not peace at first. Power is storm. It is shaking hands and tight lungs. It is doubt, temptation, and the desire to run. But you stay. You don't move. And in that stillness, the whispers lose their power because you've stopped obeying them. A practice, the throne ritual. When the craving comes, before you react, pause and ask, what do I really want? What is this craving hiding? What would a king do? Then sit with it, not to suppress it, but to contain it, to feel the fire and not flinch, to hear the voice and not bow. Because every time you stay, you take back the throne. This is the test, not of knowledge, not of strength, but of presence. Can you be here, now, without being led by the ghosts of hunger? Most men will fail, but you are not most men. Closing line. The throne doesn't belong to the loudest man. It belongs to the one who commands, without saying a word. In the next and final chain of this episode, we enter the chamber of the crown, where the throne is no longer a metaphor, but a choice. Will you take your place, or let the whispers rule? Stay close, brother. The crown is near. Here comes the final link in episode 4. The throne within. Chain 3. The chamber of the crown. You do not wear the crown. You become the crown. There comes a moment on every man's path when the war quiets. Not because it's over, but because you've stopped running. The cravings still knock. The doubts still whisper, but they no longer command the throne. Because you've remembered something. The kingdom within you was never lost. It was simply left unguarded. And now, you've returned. Welcome to the chamber of the crown. The final mirror. Power isn't built in public, it's forged in private. In that hour of silence, when no one sees you, when no one cheers, when no woman waits, when no outcome is guaranteed, and you still rise, still stay, still choose truth over relief. That is when the crown forms, not on your head, but in your being. Because real kingship is invisible. It's not what you own. It's what you won't bow to. Jung and the crown of wholeness. Carl Jung called it individuation, the full integration of all that you are, not just the light, not just the shadow, but the union, the beast and the philosopher, the child and the sovereign, the lover and the warrior, all sitting at one table, no longer in conflict, but in command. The privilege of a lifetime, Jung said, is to become who you truly are. And who are you? Not a man pretending, not a man performing, but a man who no longer needs the mask, because he knows what he is. The 4 pillars of the inner throne. To sit in the chamber and wear the invisible crown, you must embody 4 quiet forces. 1. Silence, without shame. Can you sit with yourself? No noise, no scroll, no sugar, no sex, and not squirm, not escape? Can you dwell in stillness and not feel punished by it? Because silence is not emptiness. It is sovereignty. 2. Desire without desperation. You can want her but not chase. You can feel the ache but not lose your form. Because a king doesn't beg, he chooses. And sometimes he waits, and sometimes he walks away. 3. Presence without performance. Can you enter a room and not need to be seen, not need to impress, not need to prove? Because true presence isn't about being the loudest, it's about being the most anchored. People feel it, even if they can't explain it. 4. Command without control. This is the paradox. You gain control by releasing it. Because the man who trusts himself doesn't need to manipulate others. He leads by example, he moves with intention, he speaks less, but each word holds weight. The final trial. Now here's the twist most men don't expect. After all the growth, after all the silence, after you've reclaimed the throne, she will return. The woman, the craving, the storm, dressed better, speaking sweeter, promising more, but this time, you see it clearly and you smile, not in contempt, not in pride, but in peace. Because what used to shake you, now only bows. Practical practice, the throne. Daily. Let's make this more than poetic. Here's your daily throne ritual to keep the crown. Morning. Wake before distraction wakes you. 10 minutes of silence, no phone, just breath. Midday. 1 moment of discomfort? Don't fix it. Sit in it. Ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? Evening. No pleasure before review. Review your day like a king checks his map. Where did I react? Where did I rule? The crown is not won once. It's claimed daily, through presence, through pause, through power without noise. Closing words. The throne is you. The throne is not a chair, it is a frequency. You don't sit on it, you become it. And when you do, the world changes around you. Not because it bends, but because your gaze no longer wavers. Your peace becomes unbuyable, your presence becomes undeniable. Your life becomes unshakable, and people feel it. They'll ask, what changed? Why do you move like that? Why does she chase you now? And you'll smile, because it was never about chasing her. It was about becoming the kind of man she could never forget. If this series has moved something in you, drop a comment. Let us know what line hit you hardest. Share your ritual, share your return, and subscribe to this channel, because in the next episode, The Cost of Peace, we step into the sacred loneliness of the king, where you're no longer distracted, no longer empty, but finally alone and full. See you there, brother. Until then, walk like a king, rule like a monk, love like a storm, and never bow to the craving again.